Welcome to this special 3-part project showcasing our new version 11.5 software features. Here at Vectric, we are excited to have recently released an updated version of Cut2D, VCarve and Aspire. To help demonstrate the updates, new tools and improvements, we have put together a set of 3 projects that work alone and can be stacked together to make an even more impressive conversation piece. This 3rd project will highlight what's new in Aspire version 11.5, building on the feature set we showed you in the first 2 projects. Remember, as an Aspire version 11.5 software owner, you have all of the Cut2D and VCarve features. Time is one of those things we can't control, slow down or even pause. We must be reminded to try to make every second count using the time that we have. There's something special about making an object that is a one-of-a-kind, to create memories around and to be there when we can't. A thing to be passed down to the generations to remind everyone of our stories. Over the past few years, I've had it on my list to make a sundial. It's one of those things that would look lovely in the garden or even as an object on my desk. Something I could take outside and show my children how to tell time with what looks to be a very simple object. Looking at the adventure map and the explorer frame that we made in the first 2 videos in this series, I think we could take them as a base for the sundial. Putting all 3 of these projects together would be a great way to tell a very interesting story. Let's look at how we can create a customized sundial using some of the new and updated features in Aspire 11.5, and then sort out a base with a compartment for a map or even a few photos. This video will show you how we have used some of the version 11.5 features to create this project. This is not a step-by-step project tutorial, so it will be helpful if you're comfortable with some of the version 11 features of your software. So here we have a file that we've set up in Aspire 11.5. It includes all the parts or all the sheets that we use to make the adventure map and the explorer frame. Of course, all the tools that we use to create those with are available in your Aspire 11.5. And we set up a new sheet called Sundial Base. Now let's go ahead and start to design the actual face of our sundial. Look, I'm not going to pretend I know how to make a working sundial. I know it can be done, but I'm really not up for that challenge, so let's go ahead and do a little Google and see what we can find out. So Google helped me find this great website. Now there's a couple of things you need to remember. First of all, the gnomon is the sail-shaped thing that goes in the center of your sundial that's going to cast the shadow. And we're also going to need to know the latitude of where your location is in the world. Now this site makes it really easy. You can go ahead and click this What's My Latitude button and it'll bring up a map where you can find your latitude on the map, which is really quite easy. I already know mine, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and type it in here, which is going to be 52.225. And the diameter of the sundial that I'm going to make is going to be approximately 180 millimeters. And my gnomon, I can tell it how thick I'm going to make this. And this will actually separate my sundial down the middle, so there's enough space for my gnomon in there. I'm going to make it 10 millimeters. Now I want it to be set to full scale. I want the dimensions on there. I want my numbers, but I want to use Roman numerals instead. And as soon as I click this, you'll notice what happens down here. Here is the actual top of my sundial if I'm looking straight down on it. And here again is my gnomon that I can use. I can use this triangle to help to design my gnomon. So now all I need to do is just go ahead and right click on that, say copy image. Let's go into our Aspire software. And then I can right click on my sheet and I can say paste. And there we have it right in there, ready for me to go ahead and start to create the vectors that I need to develop the top of my sundial. So let's have a bit of a closer look at the image that we got from that website. First of all, you'll notice that it's now 190 millimeters across opposed to 180. That's because we've added in, or the software's added in, the thickness of the gnomon for us here. So that'll help us when we go ahead and lay out our vectors. So what I've gone ahead and done is I have those vectors already drawn up. So if I go ahead and drop down my layers here and we go ahead and take a look at the sundial, we'll turn that layer on and we'll see that we have some vectors here already. And it's pretty obvious that I've just traced over the lines that are in that bitmap and created some closed vectors so I could VCarve all of these. I didn't want to profile cut them, I wanted to VCarve them. And I also have a pocket in the middle here for the gnomon to fit into, and I used some fillets at the end so that I could make sure I had nice, clean, sharp corners. If we go ahead and hide the bitmap layer so we can see what we have, that's what we have in the end. Now, what I'd like to do is add some decoration around the inside of this. Now, this circle represents a dome or an inverted dome that I'm going to put in there so that I can add some nice relief models to it. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you one of the nice new features of our shape creator that we've added into version 11.5. But I'm going to do this from another instance of Aspire. So here we have it. We've got some star vectors drawn here, and then we have some text at the bottom. Now let's just go ahead and select all of the stars for right now. And go into our shape editor. And we're going to go ahead and create a angular profile at around 21 degrees. That's totally fine. I'll make it a little bit more maybe. We're going to have no limit to that. And we're going to add it. And we'll see what the result of that is. And that looks pretty good. But you'll notice that as the shape was starting to develop, it ends up getting this really sort of interesting kind of taper in the middle here that tapers up. And in some cases, that's not a bad thing. But we decided that some people might not want that there. So we went to a lot of effort to add this button right here, which is called Preserve Internal Corners. So if we turn that on, we'll see the software will work a little bit of magic, and we'll have a new shape. And this, in this particular instance, is a much better result than what we had a minute ago. Let's just go ahead and turn that off again. And turn it back on again. Okay, let's just go ahead and start a new component. And let's have a look at this same sort of operation when it comes to text. So just go ahead and apply the settings that we have here. And we can zoom in on our text and we'll see some of the inefficiencies of the version 11 shape creation. You see there, W looks a little bit funny. It's not the way it should probably look in the end. And our N has those same little tapers, and same with the S. As soon as we turn on that Preserve Internal Corners, you see that those get all cleaned up, and the resulting shape is much nicer in this particular situation. And that's all because of this one little click button here. So keep that in mind when you're developing your shapes. Let's go back to our Sundial project. Perfect. Let's have a look at our modeling tab. And let's go ahead and tile our views so we can quickly take a look and watch what I've done when it came to actually creating this sundial. So at the very top here, we've got some parts that are going to make up the back of our sundial. We have a dome in the middle. And then we have the moon and stars. And I developed the stars exactly the same way you saw a minute ago. And there's a compass star in the center. Those look pretty nice. And then what we want to do is we want to add another element right in here. And I kind of think a nice wave would look really good. So let's just go ahead and show you another new feature of version 11.5 when it comes to live sculpting. So here we are in a new instance of Aspire, and I already have some pre-made vectors all ready for us. Let's go ahead and tile our view so we can take a look at a 3D view. And you'll see that I've chosen a blue color for this. When I model, I like to use a solid color. And if we look at my job setup, you'll see that it's 12 inches by 12 inches, and the thickness is 0.75 of an inch. These really don't matter so much, except for what I want to make sure is that the vectors that I'm drawing take up the majority of the space. That way I'm going to be making the best use of all the pixels that are here for me. And what I'm creating is a piece of clip art that I can not only use for this project, but I can go ahead and use for subsequent projects after this. So I want to make sure I have a really good 3D model to work with a really high pixel density. So what I'm doing is I'm making use of as many of these 4 million points as I can in my model. Just go ahead and click cancel. And let's start to model this. So right now I've got a set of 2 vectors right here that we're going to choose, and we're going to create a 2-rail sweep for our modeling tab. Create a 2-rail sweep. We're going to use those selected vectors, make sure they're pointing in the right direction. We're going to choose this profile. We're going to scale our cross section with the width, and we're going to merge that in, and we're just going to go ahead and click apply. And you'll see in our 3D view we have a nice looking inside wave shape. That looks good. Let's go ahead and close that down. The next thing we want to start to develop is the wave at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a dome. Okay, so we're going to go up here to our shape creation tool. Make sure we have that oval selected. That looks fine. We're going to have no limit to this. And that's all great. We're going to make sure we merge this in. We'll click apply. Then we'll close this down. And we only want to keep the part under the dome that the wave is at. So if we select this vector, hold down our shift key and grab the dome, we can go ahead and clear the area outside of that selected component. And now what we have is sort of a partial wave. Now with the wave that I want to develop, I actually want to make it look like it's layered a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this component and we're going to hold down our control key and we're going to drag it down a little bit. And because it's a merge component, it's going to merge in over here, and I can go ahead now and just kind of size it to fit underneath that other wave. That looks pretty good like that. And now if I want to go ahead and adjust my shape height, I can choose this in the 3D view, and these new handles here we'll see come up that we can go ahead and adjust our shape height or our base height. Base height would be dragging the cube, and the shape height is dragging the arrow. For this case, I'm going to go ahead and grab the shape height, and I can go ahead and size it and put it right where I want it to be. I get instant feedback now, where before in version 11 we didn't have that at all. And that looks great to start out with. So let's just go ahead and maximize this for a second and have a look at what we have. Now that looks pretty good, except for we need to do a little bit of sculpting to this and make sure everything blends in together. So let's choose this underlying shape here first of all, and we'll go up to our sculpting. And now this is the beauty of the live sculpting. Now when I sculpt in version 11.5 of Aspire, I can see all of my other components, so that when I sculpt the component that I had selected before I entered the sculpting, I'll be able to see how it interacts with the other components around it. So let's start off with a bit of smoothing. We'll just kind of smooth down the edges of that a little bit. We can go ahead now and do a little bit of smudging. We'll turn down our diameter a little bit, or maybe up a little bit. Sculpting is a very organic thing. You'll see that as I sculpt this, I'm not affecting any of the other shapes, but I can tell if I get close to them what's going on. And to me that looks pretty decent. Now I can go ahead and maybe add a little bit of shape to that a little bit. Let's add a much bigger diameter. Let's make it a smaller diameter. We're just going to add in a little bit of some shapes here to give us more of a wave look to it. There we go. It looks all right. Let's just go ahead and keep those changes. Click OK. Let's go ahead and have a look at this top shape. And we can sculpt it. Again, we're just going to go in and do a bit of smoothing and add a little bit of material throughout it. And also go ahead and smudge some stuff. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So let's just go ahead now and keep all that. Let's click OK. Let's create a brand new level. And we're going to create a component from our composite model. We'll hide all those construction components that we have. And now I can go ahead again and re-sculpt this a little bit more, just to kind of blend everything in again. There we go, and I can keep that and click OK. Now we can rename this wave. And we can export that out as a 3D clip file if we'd like to. That way we can use it in another project down the road if we want to. And we're confident that pixel density, we use as many of those pixels as we could to create this model so it's in a decent resolution for almost any job. Let's head back to our Sundial project. Okay, so if we go ahead now and zoom out a little bit and we go to our sheets, you'll see that on our sheets here I have a modeling sheet. If I turn that on and we take a look at that sheet, go ahead and tile our views the other way, and I go into our modeling tab, you'll see that we've actually have in here a wave that I created that I'm going to use over on our sundial face. If I turn on the wave here, you'll see there it is. And there it is. Now the beauty of this again is that once I copy and pasted my wave in there, I have the option to sculpt it a bit more, and that's what I did, so I could shape it into the actual face of this sundial and wrapping it around the star, as you can see. And it works out really, really well in the end. Again, I could do all that live sculpting and be able to see everything around it, so I knew exactly what the outcome was going to be. Now with that done, the last thing to do is to make sure that all of this information or all of these components fit inside of that dish. So I turned up on the edge, you'll see that the tips of these components stick out above my material, and I don't want that, and that's why I have this multiply level in here. The dome that you see on it is exactly the same dome that I used up top, except for it's been scaled to 1 unit. So in this case it's 1 inch, but if this job was in millimeters, I'd scale it to 1 millimeter, and I turned it into a multiply, so that way it'll actually taper down my components to fit inside that dish. If we go ahead and maximize that, let's take a look at that. And again, so let's turn off that level and turn back on that level. And there we have the result of that. And that looks pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and have a look at some of the tooling for this. Let's go ahead and pin that down. We've got dowels because we have a front and a back to this. We had to create a small lip on the back side so it could fit inside the top of our Explorer frame. We have a roughing pass, a finishing pass, a pocket for our Gnomon, and some V-carving. So let's just go ahead and preview all those. Turn off our V-carve one for a second. We'll preview all of our visible toolpaths. And again, because this is version 11.5, we can go ahead and twiddle around this while we're actually previewing our tooling and see exactly what's going on. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our V-carving. It's interesting the way that you can actually see the tool geometry while you look at your 3D preview. Okay. Now we also have a backside to this, which I mentioned to you before. It's going to actually have the lip, so we can go ahead and fit it inside the top of our sundial project. Okay. Let's go back to our sheets for a minute. And we'll have a look at our Gnomon, which again, we just went ahead and copy and pasted the image from that website to create the Gnomon here, which is a single-sided job, and there's a bit of a lip on the inside of it so they can house a piece of brass. So inside here, we're going to have a piece of brass, and that'll be taken care of by the brass Gnomon, these inserts. Take a look at those. These are a nice detail to the finished job. Again, thanks to Sheets, we can keep all of these different materials in the same file. We can have a look at what these are going to look like when they're all done. Use a V-bit to cut those lines in there, and then we're going to use an end mill to cut out the inserts. And very thin tabs here because that's all we need in this piece of brass. Let's go back to our 2D view again. And the last thing I want to point out is that we actually have a base in here. I wanted to add a base to this project with a pocket in the top so that we could go ahead and include some maps or maybe some photos of the adventure that we had been on. The top is very simple. It's actually just a pocket inside of a square shape. But more interestingly, the back side is actually a molding toolpath to create some legs. So let's have a look at that. Again, we're using a nice piece of oak for this. When it's all stacked up, it'll look good. Let's just go ahead and preview all of the toolpaths that are here. And here's the clearance tool for the molding toolpath. And there we have the nice molding toolpath. And then when we pocket out the middle, you'll see that we're left with only the parts of the legs that we want. And I put a little tab in the top here so that you could grab a hold of your maps when you slide them in the little slot on the other side. So again, it's a great use for your molding toolpath. You can create little legs for the bottoms of projects like this. So let's close that down. And we'll go to the other side. Okay, let's go over to our layers manager here, and we're going to go ahead and turn on this last layer here that we've got turned off. That'll just expose the vectors that we used on our sundial, compass, star at the top here in the sheet. Now there's one last sheet we haven't talked about, and that was the layout sheet here. So if I turn that on, and we go ahead and select that. While I was designing this whole project, I used this sheet to keep track of everything and make sure everything lined up properly. It was going to look good in the end. So if I flip over to my 3D view, you'll see that this is what we have here. And literally, it's just a way for me to kind of keep track of everything so that I could be sure that the overall look of this project was going to be what I expected it to be. Let's go ahead now and jump into the labs and see how the sundial cut. videos in this series, we have touched on many new and updated features of version 11.5, using them to create a unique and interesting project that can be easily edited and customized to tell a bit of your story. Something that your family, friends, and you can enjoy for many years and keep those important and special memories alive. Some of the version 11.5 features covered in this project video: I used preserved internal corners to add more definition to the stars, the live sculpting to create the wave and to make it fit better into my layout. Other notable software features: sheets to keep track of all those different materials, creating the wave on its own sheet so that I can make the best use of the pixel density. This allows me to create a piece of clip art that can be used in future projects. If you missed the adventure map we created in Cut2D or the explorer frame that we created in VCarve, be sure to take the time to watch the previous 2 videos in this series and discover even more exciting new features included in your Aspire version 11.5 software. We have done lots of work under the hood with regards to hardware acceleration that many of the features of your software will benefit from. You should see things like faster rendering and file importing. Of course, this depends on the hardware you have in your laptop or PC. We can't wait to see what you make with your Vectric software. Tag us on your favorite social platform or create a post in the Vectric user forum. We want to see what you guys are making. Until next time, keep making fun stuff and be safe.